Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we can Overly Sarcastic Productions History Summarize the Baghdad House of Wisdom. Now this is something I have not heard about. I have not got anything from cultural osmosis. I have never heard a mention of this. And if it's been brought up under a different name, under different circumstances that I do not remember, which admittedly is actually a very low bar for me because my memory is shit. But more importantly, it also means all of the stuff we're going to get to, everything Blue is going to cover, I got nothing on this, man, which is the most exciting possible thing for me because it means I got all new information coming in, and this is freaking cool. I haven't even seen the video and I'm pre-geeked out. Well, you guys know what kind of video this is. It's going to be me acting like normal in every single video I do. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. Link below, video, hit it up. Let's get started.
There are few things history enthusiasts find more captivating than a library.
Accurate.
The lost libraries like Alexandria get all the attention and
Oh, did they do an
drama, yet
Alexandria
hundreds
video?
of institutions remain comparatively unknown despite similarly monumental contributions to the sum of human learning.
Like
Among
what?
those countless libraries to exist throughout history, some survive while others are indeed lost.
Whoops, dropped my torch because Alexandria burned down. Although I've been told that this is, while horrible and a lot of initial manuscripts were lost, there was a lot of reproductions that were pushed everywhere else, so the information might not be completely lost forever. We just don't know what specifically was there. And if that's not accurate, I'm going to let myself believe that because it's a little less disappointing because it still bugs me as someone who is something of a bibliophile.
But the single most consequential of them all has to be the Baghdad House of Wisdom.
So it's basically
known in
the
Arabic as the
Baghdad
Bait
Alexandria.
al-Hikmah, this sanctuary of scholarship was the beating heart of the Islamic Golden Age, a focal point of science, philosophy, math, and theology.
And I'm pretty sure they're responsible for most of the current algebra and math styles we do now, so a significant impact on human history.
For an entire civilization. I'm gonna need a broom for all these sweeping declarations
Broom?
I'm making here, but the point is that the House of Wisdom was a big freaking deal. Yet the intrigue continues because much like our favorite Alexandrian archive, Baghdad's great library is also lost. So we get to have some fun playing detective.
So not only are we doing a story about a library, which admittedly for a lot of people, they're probably here like, who cares? I'm hearing that going, oh, goody. And I'm completely okay with that because this is the kind of things I find fascinating. But it's a lost library that has intrigue. Oh, so it's a mystery and a library. Dear God, Blue, you're just giving me my wish list of things I wanted to see.
Where did the House of Wisdom come from? What inspired
they don't know where it came from?
What knowledge was kept there? And
Is
who
it
were
even
its
real
greatest
or just
minds?
thought
Then,
of as real?
critically, what the heck happened to it? And
They don't know
was
how it
even real.
Oh.
Aha!
Oh, so it's not even confirmed to have been real like Alexandria was real because everyone documented well that it burned down. Oh. Granted, Alexandria was also lost on the way, so it hadn't burned, it probably would have been swamped later.
A mystery. So, to understand the House of Wisdom and appreciate its legacy across the Islamic world, let's do some history. The House of Wisdom, as we understand it, came into full form around the late 700s AD, but it was not the first library in Muslim history. For context, after Islam swiftly spread out of Arabia in the mid-600s, the Umayyad dynasty was happily in charge of the largest empire yet known to history, with territory reaching from Visigothic Spain through Byzantine Egypt to Sasanian Persia. As such, two of the ancient world's most robust literary traditions fell right into the Umayyads' lap, and the natural thing to do was follow their lead and build a library for.
Huh. So it literally came down to a conquered people had traditions, so they incorporated it. I mean, that makes sense. Hell, most cultures, both scientific, religious, secular or not, do something, I can't speak today, something similar. So it kind of makes sense. I just love that a library is the thing they decided to steal.
For it. This wasn't a standalone institution, but rather a function of the
Damascus?
Great Mosque in the capital city of Damascus. Much like medieval Christian monasteries were centers of scholarship, mosques were the natural venue for theological study and thus a handy place to store any books on other assorted topics. Of course, the new Muslim
Books were
ruling
already there.
class spoke Arabic, while the locals spoke their native Latin, Greek, Coptic, Syriac, and Persian. So
I mean, I kind of figured Arabic would be a thing because it's around now, but Greek, Latin, sure, but Coptic, Syriac, and Persian, they all kind of make sense in hindsight that, yeah, this is where they live. There's that many languages, but there's just so many. And I don't know why this is surprising, considering I was thinking of it as like, here's one empire that stretched across this area that was conquered by this one group. But it's a pan-cultural empire, so yeah, that would be a thing. I wonder if that means there's more Rosetta Stone-style inscription tablets out there that we just haven't found yet, because they would almost need them to maintain order throughout multiple different languages. Or if they just hoped someone understood what they said and then just pointed them at a spear if they didn't. This is more completely off topic. This is the kind of thing I want to find out. How is the culture structured around just being able to communicate?
Collecting all their text required translating that into Arabic. But when we're dealing with the accumulated wisdom of several civilizations, that's a lot of work to just
So there was
sit
a lot of
down and
translation
start
efforts.
doing. So the Umayyads only got so far in their pursuit of knowledge. They also only got so far in their pursuit of existing, as the Umayyad dynasty was soon toppled and replaced by the Abbasids after a revolution in the year 750, or counted another way, 132 years after the Hijra in the Islamic calendar. This was no mere political switcheroo, as the transition to the new Abbasid Caliphate brought with it a huge shift in culture, away from the Mediterranean-facing Umayyad world and towards the Abbasids' eastward power base in Persia. Their new capital of Baghdad was founded a short ways up the Tigris River from the old Sasanian capital of Ctesiphon.
Wait, founded? Oh, this is based on the founding of Baghdad.
The new capital of Baghdad was founded a short ways up the Tigris River from the old Sasanian.
Sorry, I just find it fascinating when cultural centers, places that still exist now and are inhabited and not just abandoned, are just like, oh yeah, and here's what happened hundreds and thousands of years ago. And it's just, this is freaking cool, man. I'm sorry, I'm geeking out over history.
Capital of Ctesiphon, and the city itself was built in the Persian fashion of round cities rather than the Greco.
Wait, the round city style was a Persian concept? Does that mean that every goddamn fantasy trope that has the round city near a river was basically stealing the Persian concept? Huh. That's actually kind of fascinating that there's that bit of cultural osmosis that I never even knew was osmosis. I thought it was just lazy writing because it was in one fantasy, it's within all the others. And while that might be the case, someone saw it somewhere. They might not have even realized what they were stealing from was an actual concept with cultural intonations. This is the kind of thing, I don't think it's an intentional copying, but the fact that it does carry from one to the other. So there was probably that transition where someone saw it and reinterpreted the idea. And then you get into other fantasy mediums and you see how that's done. Because if you look at this, you told me this was a fantasy map, I would believe it because it fits the normal style. This is, I'm sorry, things like this where you can see the beginning point and then you know where the end point is. And then you just know that between that, there's so much change and variation, but that the idea had to coexist and mutate through those decades and centuries. It's just, this is why watching blue stuff is just a literal treat to me. Oh God, who needs, I was going to say sugar, but let's be honest. No, we don't want to lose sugar. This is basically sugar.
Roman grids. This all isn't to say that the Abbasid Caliphate is a secret bonus Persian empire, but that the Arab aristocracy of the Abbasid dynasty saw a lot of good ideas and talented people in the wider Islamic world.
So basically, they're the equivalent of what Rome was to Greece. They stole the good shit. I'm not sure if they meant that literally like Rome did, because Rome stole all the good shit from everywhere, but they stole a lot of shit. Not sure if they did yet.
The conscious choice to seek out Persian influences for their new and still very malleable Muslim
slowly
culture.
changing the color.
That, of course, included Persian scholarly culture, with a tradition of grand imperial libraries and a multilingual populace. So the Abbasids were able to go all in on translations.
Damn.
The Umayyads had focused their efforts on practical texts like astronomy and medicine, but the Abbasid translation movement went for everything. Literature and poetry, philosophy and theology, math, physics, astronomy and astrology, logic, alchemy, and the various fields these scholars would invent on their own, like cryptography and algebra.
I mean, algebra we knew would happen eventually, but cryptography was also invented here? Oh. I know very little about cryptography just because it's way over my head, but I'm aware of it. Huh. I wasn't expecting to find that we would know where that came from, even in a slightly generalized, it came from this specific location of the world at this rough 100-year time period, probably. I was expecting, like, people have been using it, but they were all secretive, so we don't really know who came up with it. That's actually what I was expecting.
Among the most famous of the Abbasid translators was Hunayn ibn Ishaq, an historian Christian scholar responsible for translating Galen's medical text and the complete works of Hippocrates, the mathematics of Archimedes and Euclid, as well as Plato's Republic and most of Aristotle.
God damn. That is a lot of stuff. Architecture, math, and medicine.
A massive volume of work to undergo, but more than worth it, as the Caliphate paid Ibn Ishaq's team the weight of every text they translated in gold. That hefty...
Okay, I would normally say that sounds like a lot. Because right now, oh goddamn, that would be a lot! But I don't know how much that was functionally worth back then. I mean, gold transfers were more common, but also it's still gold. So if someone knows in the comments roughly what that would be worth, let me know, unless he's about to say that.
Payday wasn't just for the fun of minting books worth of solid gold, but because
Damn.
putting the world's knowledge into the pan-imperial language of Arabic made it accessible for all.
Translations led to commentaries, which led to entirely new ideas. Medieval Islamic medicine innovated heavily on classical sources like Galen. Seen here in a manuscript, Ibn Ishaq developed the most sophisticated medical culture in the medieval world? Oh! See, I'm very biased because of most interpretations I've seen showing medicine as, hey, who wants to use the bone saw? That's a horrible joke, but at the same time, there's been times where that's also completely and accurately too nice for how some medicine was performed. What counts as the most advanced, though, or the most sophisticated?
All scholars, who could then discuss it, comment on it, and create their own innovations on top of it. The polymath Al-Kindi translated huge volumes of Plato, Aristotle, and Plotinus, and went on to compose hundreds of original treatises on philosophy and natural science. Another...
Oh, wait, so if they had so many translations, and there's so many Greek works that were lost because there were just so many, what are the possibilities, then, that we're looking in the wrong place to try and find the originals? Because if the original is gone, a copy of it and a copy of a copy of a copy might exist somewhere else that we just haven't even bothered looking at yet. And considering the trade routes did exist at this time period across most of Asia and Europe and Africa for a significant extent, sorry, this is one of those treasure hunt ideas that I just absolutely get fascinated by. If someone told me there's a chance you could find their rare manuscript by going on an expedition to a small isolated village and insert anywhere in the world, I mean, I wouldn't do it because I'm a coward, but it would be super tempting even then, man.
Scholar Al-Khwarizmi translated treatises on the Hindu numeral system to adapt it into the Hindu Arabic system we all use now, and also created the entire field of...
Wait, so with Hindu numerals?
Into the Hindu Arabic. Scholar Al-Khwarizmi translated treatises on the Hindu numeral system to adapt it into the Hindu Arabic system we all use now, and also...
Wait, so even though they're called Arabic numerals, it's based on Hindu? Oh, I was not expecting that, unless I'm misunderstanding. I have to look up more to find out.
Created the entire field of algebra on the side. These are just two examples of how the Abbasid translation movement served as the springboard for the...
So a translator created algebra based on translating Hindu numbers and the creation of probably the most commonly used math system, the one language that technically would count as universal through most of humanity now, was a side project? That's so freaking cool, man.
Ensuing golden age of medieval Muslim scholarship. Speedrunning from here's our new religion to here's our world-changing cultural achievements in just over 2 centuries.
Yeah.
A good time to be a nerd. Speaking of religion, I should specify that this all remained a fundamentally religious endeavor. Scholars saw no conflict in studying ancient philosophy or science alongside Muslim or Abrahamic theology. In the Abbasid world, theology was the study of God and his creation, so all scholarship was inherently conducted as an act of piety and worship.
Huh. I'm so used to the common interpretations that you can't be a scholar if you're hyper-religious, just because I know so many people who have actively argued that against me. I don't personally agree to that concept. But I also met a few people who were... I think the nicest way to put them would be they'd have problematic ideas, and they were very outspoken against anything that they disagreed with. The guy picked his religion based on him not liking women the same way they did, and then would quote passages of the Bible completely unrelated to anything he said to say you were wrong. But then whenever you said you were just saying random passages, he would then go and quote another passage, and it was impossible to have a conversation with him. People I've worked with, man. I've worked with some interesting characters. Oh, dear God. Yeah. But a lot of my viewpoints are kind of poisoned by that. So this is such a cool thing to hear just because it is challenging my own view, because that's not my lived experience. But it's cool to see that at least at some point it was a different experience.
God, that is so fucking cool.
Yeah!
According to the legend, Caliph Al-Mamun had some doubts, but was assuaged after meeting Aristotle in a dream and hearing him say that it was all chill. Now, it was revealed to me in a dream is not the way we conduct our scholarship.
Yeah, but that is a legitimate thing that people have done for years. And There's still a lot of people who would just still take that as gospel truth right now, and I'm not entirely sure that's a misstatement on my part or a completely accurate way to describe the kind of people who would take it that way. Basically, the people who think, I saw Jesus in bread! Admit it. You just thought of someone. Yeah.
Ship around here, but given the outcome, I'll accept it. Just as well, because Al-Mamun became perhaps the biggest proponent of Baghdad's intellectual advancement, sourcing texts from far and wide and even demanding yearly manuscripts from the Byzantines as the terms of the peace treaty. What a baller. But with all this wisdom flying around, getting translated and commented on and invented fresh off the quill, a key question to consider in the middle of all this is, where's the House of Wisdom? The simple answer is not all in one place, then mostly in one place, then eventually not all in one place again.
So it went from a local distribution to centralized to a local distribution again. Okay. And it would probably be more like a library system as opposed to a centralized library itself, if that's how it actually went down.
With the Umayyad Great Mosque, the early practice was to hold theologically significant texts in mosques, but there were also private and semi-private libraries, booksellers who served as literary hubs in their community, as well as the Caliph's royal library. Sources aren't quite solid on the dates, but they seem to indicate Baghdad's House of Wisdom began as the personal library of either Caliph al-Mansur or maybe more likely Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and was later opened up to the public by Al-Mamun in the early 800s. Persian sources note how this was reminiscent of the Sasanian library tradition, and
yeah, that tracks. Glad somebody around here appreciates archival sciences. I mean, all joking aside, you meet someone who actually goes into that field, they are very passionate because there's no one else who even knows it exists otherwise.
And its early name of Khizanat al-Hikmah, literally storehouse of wisdom, reflects this. But the raw scale of this
literally a
culture
house
was
of
something
wisdom.
only the Abbasids could accomplish. And Baghdad's position as the crossroads of the world meant Al-Mamun had plenty of resources to spend on other associated projects, like building an astronomical observatory later in his reign. However, the distribution of intellectual activity across the city's libraries, mosques, and the House of Wisdom itself has led historians like Dmitry Gutas to question whether the House of Wisdom ever existed as a singular institution, or if it's simply a catch-all for the intellectual climate of Baghdad as a whole, like how Athens was the smart boy powerhouse of ancient Greece without any singular smarty pants palace. The difficult...
Yeah, now that I think about, in fact, some of the intellectuals in Athens in that contemporary time period, in fact, well, I think it was Diogenes who went full on, no, I don't even need a house at all. I can take a jar, based on the painting. I'm not sure he actually had a jar or not.
In determining this lies in how Baghdad received the almighty Mongol smackdown of unexistification in 1258, when the city was nearly wiped off the face of the earth and every major Abbasid monument went kaplooey. If the House of Wisdom did exist, it didn't anymore, so our guesses as to what kind of space it was or in...
That's disappointing, because, yeah, sacking of a city would do that. Damn, it's not something... I'm actually hoping at this time period that it was more distributed, because if it was localized, it's not existing anymore. They're usually pretty thorough. When you destroy something, you destroy something.
Indeed, if it was any one space at all, falls first on our textual sources. Thing is, barring a truly catastrophic misreading of early accounts, the evolution from royal library to public library still checks out. So the lingering question...
The dissenting theory of Dmitry Gutas argues that Persian accounts stress the similarity of the Bayat al-Hakam to Sasanian-era treasuries. Therefore, consider it likely any other royal library. However, the highly collaborative nature of the translation movement necessitates a venue for working in teams and interacting with text. A formal education institution, it was not, but the Bayat al-Hakam, Hikmah, I can't speak Arabic, hell, I can barely speak English, did most likely exist. So it might have been based on a royal library because that was something that was known to happen, but because of the movement itself, oh my God, they're literally saying that while there was one movement here, what ended up happening is geeks take stuff home to work. I mean, I guess some things just never changed. There's an entire possibility some of the initial surviving documents might have existed and been spread around and retranslated because someone had overdue library books from at least one, if not more, general libraries. So even when the initial one was destroyed, other people still had things out.
Question is where the House of Wisdom ends and the rest of Baghdad begins. Mention of the House of Wisdom by name drops off sharply after the death of Al-Mamun when the following Caliph, Al-Mutasim, moved his administration to the new city of Samarra.
And if they're trying to drop usage after the previous leader dies and they move, it might have been that it was a catch-all term specifically related to the leader themselves, and their house was literally their palace. And that would also check with it being a royal library. In fact, I'd almost want to see how the dates compare to when one stopped being used.
Perhaps the royal library went back to a private collection after Al-Mutasim's reign.
Or
Perhaps
it
it
would
remained
just stop
open, but
called
was
that
less
because it
uniquely
was less
prominent against the
referential to the
vibrant
previous
backdrop
leader.
of other libraries, mosques, and discussion venues in the city. Working by written accounts alone, we'd be guessing forever. There is, however, a second piece of the puzzle that might help us understand Baghdad.
Yes?
And that's everywhere else.
What?
See, Baghdad got turbo squished by the Mongols, but other places didn't, so we can look to
Because there's still
archaeological and
other books from
architectural
other
evidence
eras.
across the Islamic world to see if there are any other spaces like the House of Wisdom, and then try to work backwards. As it happens, there are several. The same period saw the foundation of the world's first formal university in the Moroccan city of Fes, whose notable students...
Wait, Morocco had the first formal university? I mean, I know Oxford was old, like literally older than the Aztec Empire, which is still crazy to say out loud, at least in my head. But I didn't realize it wasn't the first. It must be near. Is it? He mentioned a date. I'll have to listen to that again.
Period saw the foundation of them and then try to work backwards.
900s
As it
AD.
happens, there are several. The same period saw the foundation of the world's first formal university.
Is that university still around? Because if it's not, someone probably could do that, because that would be a great place to have it. It's like, here, come to the first university. Why go for the rest when you could go to the first? Maybe not the best tagline, but they could back it up.
In the Moroccan city of Fes, whose notable students included Moses Maimonides, Ibn Khaldun, and Pope Sylvester II?
What?
Wild.
Seriously?
Created by the wealthy widow
Oh.
Fatima al-Fikhri in
Wasn't expecting
859, the University of Al-Qarawiyyin was a combination of a mosque and a school, named
So it's a
after her
religious
native city
school,
in
okay.
Tunisia, which was
Makes
a
sense. There's a
prominent
lot of
center
those
of
around.
Islamic scholarship in North Africa. Kairouan itself is famed for a great mosque from the early 800s. Built by the local Aghlabid dynasty, it housed books on math, astronomy, and medicine in addition to Islamic theology
And that
law.
explains why they then became a
Excitingly,
university.
it's still around, so we can see
Still?
the prayer hall, courtyard, and minaret still beautifully standing today.
Oh, goddamn, I love ancient structures, man. Just going in there, knowing the history, finding out what's going on, how things... This is... if I wasn't absolutely cheap and also never could afford this, I would love to do that. Minus the previously stated reasons.
Permit me a brief foray into the thumbtacks and string zone, but I see no difficulty imagining a space like this in Baghdad deserving a name like House of Wisdom. Looking elsewhere along the Med, the great Iberian city of Cordoba boasted a grand library founded in the 800s and expanded in the 900s, and the Fatimid capital of
It
Cairo
does lead
saw
more to the idea that
Al-Azhar
there's just a
University plus its very
generalization.
own House of Wisdom open at the turn of the millennium.
Oh.
Perhaps the final feather in the OG House of Wisdom's cap was associating the patronage of knowledge with imperial legitimacy, making splendid
Oh.
centers of learning an essential feature.
Haha, now you're all nerds forever. Couldn't have gone better if we planned it. Oh my god, they literally had legitimacy through nerddom. It's the nerd kingdom, and I kind of love that description.
Any aspiring Muslim state. Based as hell. The Baghdad House of Wisdom was not alone, but in many regards it is an outlier. And what I find most
Outlier? Baghdad's I'm not even going to try to say that. Built in 1230, very late Abbasid architecture, but a window into how a purpose-built educational space looked like. Oh, so it's still
fascinating is
courtyard
how we
style.
learn more about it the farther afield we look. The books it collected, the
Whoa.
translators who rendered them in elegant Arabic, the influence it had on the scholarly culture of the wider Islamic world, and the endless impact of its ideas in the history of theology, philosophy, and science. Baghdad's House of Wisdom was almost certainly a physical space, but the tantalizing mystery around its specifics reveals a deeper truth, that how
So, unless I'm completely misreading this, what he's describing is that there was a house. It was probably initially based on a private library, but then it also spread out into a wider library system because there were various traditions of various other libraries around there that sprang up either separate or were later incorporated into it. So it was both an initial location as well as the surrounding locations that probably shared information. Dude, so the answer of which one is it? It was both. It was both an individual solid physical location that was most likely destroyed and the surrounding overarching architecture that we've kind of just grouped as a catch-all term for it. So it's probably known as something completely different at the time, unless that's actually how they're referring to it now as well, and I'm just not misreading that.
Houses alone don't create wisdom. People do. Golden Age Baghdad was a good time to be a nerd indeed.
Dude. And that was freaking awesome, man. I'm sorry. Every step of the way here, I was enjoying this. I love seeing the mystery. I love seeing how it's a bunch of collections of text showing that there was something that was lost, but that its entire contributions stemmed from creations of so many things we know now. Algebra for one, and I mean, I'm an English major. It's probably something someone who appreciates more would geek out over, but just the fact that it's connected to so many important activities like that is just fascinating. And this was such a geek out episode, and I'm completely here for this. The only thing I wish Blue had covered would have been if there was any current archaeological discoveries or any research being done at the moment to try and see if there is something to uncover, because maybe it was lost of time and there were aspects of it or maybe secondary locations that were buried but discoverable. I would have loved more current, up-to-date research on that. Just not so much the overall aspects he covered, the text that could show the pattern of information transfer and how there were other creations at the same time that worked together because of how things were set up. I would have liked some of the archaeological references, because that would have been just like that little caption of, and here's what we're discovering now based on going to these locations, which admittedly would have probably been very limited in the last decade because there's been a bit of the Middle East. Yeah, that would make it a lot harder to do that safely. That is an unfortunate point. Either way, though, this is the kind of stuff that is just catnip to me. This entire video is catnip. I loved every second of this. I'm not sure what I'll check out next because I'm probably just going to work through a whole bunch of what Blue's doing because I just want to see more, man. I'm jonesing for all the history and the information he can pull together. This is just so freaking cool. You have no idea how hard it is not to do another one right now because I want to, but also I have to adult, so I can't. Stupid adulting. More importantly, you guys know the deal. Link below video. Hit it up. If you like it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.